everybody. Welcome to, this is kind of special Sonic Talk. I know you're probably all waiting for episode 500. This isn't really episode 500. This is a special. We were talking a little bit in last week's episode 499 about library music, and we covered it a little bit, and it struck me that I had a really good opportunity to talk to somebody who's deep into library music as well as many other things that they do in music. And so today we're going to talk to Mr. DJ Puzzle, aka Jason. How are you, Jason? Jason's in LA. He's a music producer and creator of royalty-free loops. I mean, you've done a whole bunch of stuff in your career. How are you? I know it's early.
Yeah, no, I'm great. I'm waking up. The coffee's kicking in. It's good to see you, Nick, of course. Honored to be here.
Well, we've met before. Jason, a few years ago, Jason was one of the live blogger guys because he's based in the LA area. He was live blogging from NAMM, and we met when we have our Saturday night drinks party, and we got on really well. And so I thought, what a perfect opportunity to have a chat with you. So.
Oh, cool. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, it's always a pleasure to see you when you're in the States at the NAMM show. And what was it, 2 years ago, we had a booth for the first time, my loop company. And I was going to dig that picture up and maybe show it to the crowd, but I didn't have time. But there's a nice photo of us hanging out at the booth.
Yes. And of course, our famous Saturday night tequila sessions, always very much enjoyable. And I have to say, you are a master at staying the pace.
We don't need to mention that.
Okay, right. We'll gloss over that briefly then.
No, it's just kidding. Right on.
I just want to check. You're recording now. You've got your audio.
Yeah, it should be recording here. I turned the screen off, but let me just double check.
Yeah, I just want to, because it's one of those things that because your audio is breaking up a little bit, so I just want to make sure that we've got that and we can pick it up.
Okay. So I've got a session open here in my DAW. And yeah, we're still going.
Okay, cool. Good to go. All right. So I'll just switch.
I'll leave it up on that monitor, then I can see.
Good plan. So Jason, tell me a little bit. I mean, you're also known as DJ Puzzle. I mean, I guess, did you start out DJing? I mean, where's your kind of musical history come from?
Okay, so yes and no. I got started as a teenager, in electronic music, dabbling with MIDI and sampling and stuff in the 80s. But later on, in my late 20s, I got a really cool job at Sonic Foundry. You remember them, Acid Pro? And
yeah.
Editing loops for their Loops for Acid. And I think that was kind of what really switched my life into, okay, this is real. I can work in the music industry for real as a professional. And I got a crash course working there in 2 years. And then when I was let go from that company because they downsized, I don't know, it's a long story, but the market crashed. They went public, the market crashed, and fired a bunch of employees to sort of trim the fat. They hired me on as a freelancer developing content for their Acid Pro software.
Right.
And from that point on, it kind of just... I was DJing weddings before that, and in the mid 90s I was doing like weddings and parties and playing with my friends and stuff like that. But then I had the idea to kind of turn it into more of a brand after the Sonic Foundry thing, because I was creating a lot of loops, and I thought, well, DJ Puzzle, it's like putting the sound pieces together, the loops, kind of tied in. So that's where I got that. So I thought, okay, maybe that could be a cool brand,
So you started to make your own loops and kind of, I guess, what was that based in? Did you come at that from a sort of DJ type of thing, or I guess you'd learned quite a lot about that? Because they used to do lots of soundtrack stuff, and it wasn't just music loops, did they? Acid, the Sonic Foundry stuff guys did.
Yeah, I mean, there was all kinds of things, but I was hired to produce for Acid DJ, which was a specific product. So I thought to myself, well, if I'm producing for this product that's going to be in Best Buy and Computer Discount Warehouse, all those big stores back then, maybe I should push my brand as a DJ. But yeah, no, you could do anything. I mean, you could do soundtracks, scoring, whatever with that software. They had a huge library of sounds, lots of stuff: rock, country, ambient, jazz, Latin. But I was doing the electronic stuff for them, a lot of the EDM, which wasn't called EDM back then, but
Yeah, what did
So that's why I kind
what
of-
did it used to be called before it was called EDM? It was
I don't know. I guess, well, the marketing term that was hot, I guess, was the electronica.
yeah,
remember
that's
that?
of course, yeah.
As
It's
a fan of electronic music, I just called it electronic music or dance music or house or, industrial back when I was like, more concerned with what things were called,
Right.
when I was like younger. But yeah, then the EDM thing kind of took off. And so then after that, I was able to launch Peace Love Productions, my own loop company. And then that kind of, I was still DJing. I had a weekly gig in Chicago at a couple spots, a residency. But then after I got into the kind of library production music side of things, I kind of put the whole DJing thing aside.
Right. So how did it evolve? I mean, when you started doing that, were you already kind of kitted up and ready to kind of make your own things, or did you have to sort of form the whole thing in one go? Because, I mean, you said you started out dabbling. I mean, did you keep a studio on the go or a setup on the go during those years?
Yeah, I always had something that I brought with me, a couple synths, but I also had a business partner who had a pretty nice studio in his place, and he had a bunch of synths, and it was all hardware. That's the thing, we'd use hardware. You wouldn't use software synths, or you didn't want to create loops from someone else's sample pack, or I mean not sample pack, but like Rompler or whatever. You wanted to use synthesizers and hardware and do the sound design and make it unique. And so Bernard had a lot of cool, that was my old business partner back, the other half of Peace Love Productions. And so I always had, some synths, a controller, things like that I had around, drum machine, whatever, and kind of brought that with me. And until, I want to say, the past 10 years or whatever, I finally started to kind of dial it in, where I knew exactly what I wanted and I kept around and what worked for me.
Is any of that old stuff still with you? Have you got any kind of legacy pieces that are always there? Like a kind of favorite whatever from that early period.
Honestly, no, I don't anymore.
Wow, no, interesting.
Yeah. So I'm sure I could have kept a few things that would have been cool. Like I had a Juno 106.
People will be gasping that you got rid of that, Jason. How could you?
I know. And now I just, as far as analog goes, the only thing I have right now is a Moog Voyager, and the Tempest is part analog, I guess. I mean, and so is the P12, but to some degree. But anyway, yeah. And so, I mean, and I had a lot of gear over the years, but, as it ebbs and flows, and I moved a lot, I was always moving around. I was living in, 6 different places in Chicago. That's my hometown. And then, I lived in Madison before that for Sonic Foundry. So I moved a lot. So it's kind of like schlepping that stuff around.
Yeah. That's interesting. So when did it become apparent that this was what you could do? Because, I mean, you got the gig, the actual kind of when you were working for Sonic Foundry, and then you went freelance. When did you start getting additional clients? Was there a kind of a moment where you just thought, hey, this could really work out?
Yeah, so I had this kind of epiphany. A lot of my customers, that people that buy my loops and stuff, they would write me and say, these are great sounds. I'm using them in library music. I'm writing for TV. One of my customers, even to this day, he's followed me to soundtrack loops, is the guy from Class B Xupo, I think is how you pronounce it. The Rugrats cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who found it. Yeah. He comes around once in a while and just scoops up like 20 packs. So, and then this one woman, I forget her name, she was writing for like Nicktoons, and she had a contract with them, and she bought like everything. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe I should be doing that. I started hearing my loops on TV in shows. I remember a long time ago, I heard something that I did on Saturday Night Live. It was something off
like
of
prime time.
Yeah, and it was off of one of the Sonic Foundry loop packs that I produced. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I should get into that. I've always wanted to, even as like a teen, playing video games and stuff. I always wanted to get music in video games. So I just had that thought, and I don't know, I guess I materialized it. I got this email from Reverb Nation saying we're reaching out to our top artists in all the major cities. We have this new partnership with APM in Hollywood. They're a big sync agent library service. Submit some songs. It wasn't like a pay to submit situation. It was a very private, like direct conversation. And so I took it seriously. I wasn't like, well, if they were like, well, but also you have to pay, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. But it was like a legit thing. And so I sent him some tunes, and next thing you know, I've got this featured album coming out on APM. I was one of 13 artists chosen to launch that whole new product line for library for Reverb Nation. So now I've got all these songs with APM, and I'm like, well, cool. I guess I hooked up with a sync agent. I'm in, and so I just started sending them more material. It was always open for me. The backend admin page is still open for me on Reverb Nation. It's something that not everyone has, and then I can just submit these songs, and they go straight to APM. And since then, APM's been great. I love them. I know them all now. I see them at NAB all the time. We hang out. They're in LA. Really cool people, and they've gotten me hundreds of placements over the, past 6-7 years.
It's really interesting that. So, I mean, in many ways, you're really fortunate you got that break and you were able to deliver the kind of thing. So from going from producing loops, I mean, were you already in the mindset of what it takes to create the structure of a piece of music, or the kind of thing, or did you just follow your own creative kind of process and just go, well, maybe this is cool? I mean, I wondered how premeditated is it?
Yeah, so now it's a little more premeditated, but back then I was kind of just writing whatever, but the songs were still getting placed. I'll never forget from that first album, some of the coolest things that happened, like an episode of Portlandia, for example. They edited the song and the video, and it works. It's so cool. But I see how they do that now. So I keep that in mind when I write now. But back then, I was kind of just sending whatever, and it was still getting placed. It's like background instrumentals, so it could either be like way in the background, or sometimes it's really cool. It's way up in front. It's part of the scene. So I found that recently I've been thinking more and more about structuring the arrangement for TV, where you have like a lot of stops, kind of dynamic changes. You don't want a lot of really distracting sounds, like nasally lead sounds that are way up front in the mix. Stuff like that could kind of distract from what's going on in the show. So now it's kind of premeditated. But not always.
It's interesting because I was listening, because I've got your page here up on, I think it's on Orpheum, where you've just, there's a lot of tunes up here. And one thing I did notice, I mean, they're not, some of them are kind of 3 minutes plus, but a lot of them are kind of short musical sketches but the thing that I really noticed is the transitions between sections. You're not often smearing that line. Haven't got something moving over it, so that people could, I guess editors would maybe go, I want this section, and they could just use that section without having to figure out, oh, I need to get rid of that white noise sweep because it starts before that juncture. I mean, so in terms of arrangement and that sort of thing, you must be very conscious of doing that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I've been told by some editors that my stuff's really easy to edit to. That's why I got that gig. I think you mentioned something about HBO. I scored a short for HBO. It was like one of their very first shorts. It wasn't something they did in the past. It was kind of they took some students in, and it was this whole thing where they were trying to help these students out and get started. And one of them was this dude Jamal, who I had already scored something for his thesis project, which had Jake Hoffman in it as the lead. And so he hit me up, and he's like, I really like the vibe that you have, and your stuff's really easy to edit to. And that made me think, okay, so that's what they're doing. They want things kind of locked up to a grid. It's easier when it's locked up to a grid. And it's easy when it makes things easier for them when you can just kind of, splice and edit the song.
Yeah.
and not have to worry about, like you said, things carrying over or weird sounds that might have like a long tail that,
It's interesting. I mean, that whole creative process, I mean, because obviously at the beginning you're following your own creative instinct, so you did whatever you felt. I mean, do you find now that, are you still putting stuff sort of into a void, or do people come to you and go, I need something like this for this particular, do you write to picture very often now, or are you still putting it out there in that same kind of library type format?
Yeah, so now I'm writing more specific for specific projects, shows. My buddy, his name is Jerry. He's in the band Warrant. He's based in Vegas. He's got a library company called Down Boys. And so he'll hit me up, I don't know, 2-3 times a month saying, we've got a new show, it's or whatever, we need songs for Pitbulls and Parolees, another show. He'll give us a bunch of examples. Like, so we'll take those examples in, kind of digest them, and then just spew a bunch of stuff back out. And we're all really good at that. So it gets placed. So there's like stuff like that where I know if I put time into it and I'm feeling it, it's going to get placed. I don't have to worry about it being in a void somewhere and waiting for it to do something.
Right. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I guess the thing is, that there are many schools of thought on there, because I mean, the kind of stereotypical notion of an artist is they torture over their art and they put it out there, and one day they have this massive unexpected hit, and it's all kind of, they've never actually tried to be successful necessarily. It's just like their natural creative spirit has got to where they are, and I guess that may be where it started out for you. So do you find that you're able to kind of fulfill your creative side? Because obviously there must be some things where you're being asked to do pitch for something that may be just background music for a fairly middle of the road daytime TV type of thing, and it's maybe not as creatively interesting or challenging. I mean, how do you tackle that stuff, or do you pick and choose?
I'm kind of picking and choosing right now, because like I said, I've got Jerry hitting me up. I've got I just got a contract from a company in Canada called Nightingale Music. It's a 3-song deal, writing deal. They wanted vocals. This one was asking for something sort of along the lines of Owl City, kind of a vanilla EDM kind of feel good vibe.
With that vocal sound, yeah.
With the vocal style, yeah, and those kind of cheesy lyrics or whatever. So I like that. I think it's a challenge. I like a challenge. To me, that's like, okay, yeah, I haven't done that before. Let me do it. And that's cool. I love a good challenge. If someone said, I want, throw anything at me, let's see if we can do it. If I have to hire some session players, I'll write the music and get them in. It's fun. I love it. And I can already hear the music in my head.
Right. So you get
it's
that.
It's just a matter of getting it out. Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, you're going to plant that seed in my head. Now I have to see if I can nurture it and turn it into something,
presentable.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so that's fun. I love that. That's a challenge. I really like doing that. The stuff Jerry sends me, it's like rock, so I bust out my guitar. I get to play some guitar. That's fun. I have a drummer. I'm more of a drummer at heart. So I program some solid rock beats using like a contact instrument or something. And then bust out the guitars, the bass, the Les Paul. A lot of times it's easy. It's like punk rock, it's easy.
Yeah.
Some bar chords. But then again, there's the other side of it where I'm writing whatever I want. If I'm in the mood, I write like a cool kind of feature bass kind of EDM type thing. I send that to APM. And APM, they'll place it. That's what I love about them. They're so awesome. So like if I'm just kind of being myself creatively, that stuff I send to APM.
So you can still get, we were talking about this a little bit briefly. I mean, once you get to a certain step and you've got this large back catalogue, people sort of look for you as an artist in your own right and go, yeah, I want stuff from him because I know it will work, and we connect, with his mindset and music. I mean, do you find that that's what's happening and that's why you get all those placements, do you think?
Yeah. You'll be surprised that after a while you start to notice, wow, I'm getting a lot of songs in the show, parts unknown for example, Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown. I was in like 3 or 4 seasons of that show. And I think it's the editor. I'm pretty sure I might have even met one of the editors at an NAB show and didn't realize it. And we just hit it off. And it was maybe at like an APM event in their suite. And so that kind of helps too. But yeah, then they put the name to, or the face to the name, and they like what I do. So they go back. Oh, let's see what Jason has. So you have to keep it fresh. It's a numbers game. You need a lot of music, and you have to keep it fresh. Keep new content coming in. With APM, I send them at least 20 to 30 songs per month.
Whoa. Okay, this is one question I was going to get at, because when I know we spoke in LA and you were telling me how much stuff you were writing, and it just really kind of blew my mind. You know, so an average week, you know, how many, or say an average month, how many tunes would you try and, you know, do you have a kind of target? You know, assuming you haven't got a big job in that's asking for a ridiculous amount, what sort of is your target for that sort of stuff?
I don't really set a target for myself personally, but that's because I kind of trust I'm going to hit at least, I think, 20 to 30.
Oh, wow.
If I don't hit 20, I'd be kind of bummed. But I don't put that pressure on myself. I kind of just let it happen.
So that's 5 a week.
Yeah, or it could be none that week, but like 10 or 15 the next. You know what I mean? Like, it depends. Or I'll have like an idea and I'll get a little sketch down and I'll have maybe like 10 of those just kicking it on my hard drive. And then one day I'll go in and I'll just tweak them all and finish them, you know? Yeah. So, and like you said, they don't have to be long. That's the beauty of production music. It can be 30 seconds to 2.5 minute, pretty much.
Okay.
You know?
Wow. So, I mean,
yeah.
So you must, I mean, you strike me that you must have a certain amount of self-discipline, because the ability to get up in the morning and go, right, today I know I have to, you know, I've got these 10 or 12 ideas, whatever it may be, sitting around. I need to sort of get them into some kind of shape. And you mix and you produce all of that stuff there. I mean, a lot of it, you produce it in your studio.
Most of it, yes. I do have a team of friends that are also composers that I work with from time to time. If there's a huge project or there's something that I feel, you know, like my buddy John Hobart, he's a really amazing orchestral guy. You know, I might bring them in, but for the most part, I would say about 80% of it is done right here.
Right.
In this, what you see here. Yeah. So...
But that sounds like a bunch of discipline. I mean, that's the thing, because I mean, most of us, you know, tortured artists take months to get the hi-hat part right, and, you know, still work. I mean, unless you're one of those people that just pours out of lucky, which sounds like you might be one of those guys. But I mean, a lot of people are generally thinking a much longer creative cycle, but you get to kind of work much more quickly, right?
Yeah, and I don't mind. I love working quickly, and I learned a long time ago. There was a project that I was working on with Mike Scheibinger, and I didn't realize it until I looked back on it years later that was training for my future self. In terms of, we were writing for an MTV ad, an MTV spot for Sonic Foundry's Acid Pro.
Yeah.
We were working with an ad firm, and so Mike and I, we were like working on the music for it. And we kind of locked horns on a project, on part of it. I think it was about something to do with the guitar needed to be more Korn and not so like 70s rock. And so we locked horns, whatever. Long story short, he said something to me that along the lines of, you know, you're too close to your art. And that really hit home later on. I was like, that kept ringing in my head, like, later on, and it really makes sense. You know, I can't get too close to my art. It's still me. It's still an extension of myself. But when I'm using that art to make a living, to pay my bills, I can't get too close to it, because, well, then it's not really, someone might have a criticism, or they might want to change. They might have some notes. They want me to change things, whatever. And if I'm super close, it might hurt, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And
so I can't be emo about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, let's just create some cool music and be done with it and move on. We'll do another one, write another song, you know? I've got stuff that I do that's just all me that, like I said, I send to APM that, you know, no one's criticizing, or I don't have to worry about anyone really liking it. But then again, there's the other side where it's stuff that has to kind of fit a vibe.
Yeah.
It can't be too crazy. And it has to stay within those
I find it a really interesting process, because I mean that whole, in many ways, you know, library music is much easier, or the way that you're doing it is actually now easier to decipher in terms of success than it is if you're trying to hit the charts or make popular music, because it's so difficult to measure success in that world. Whereas library, it's kind of, okay, yeah, it's a few months later and you get a check or a statement and you go, yeah, that was popular, that did well. So I mean, you know, it may as well, it's much more clear cut and much, I mean, it's more commercial, sure, but I mean, if you operate in commercial music in any way, whether it's pop music or music that you're trying to sell records, for instance, if there is such a thing anymore, then it's actually much more similar to that in many ways now.
Yeah, it totally is. And there's this other thing that they call discovery, which is really great. So this tune that I had in Parts Unknown, I actually sang on it, and it's kind of a retro kind of vibe. I think it's a little dark, kind of an electro, kind of almost goth vibe, but it fits so well to the scene. They cut such a cool scene to it, and they used my vocals. They used about 1.5 minutes of the song. I didn't even know it was in the show, because sometimes the stuff is so delayed. You don't find out until the BMI report comes, and that could be like 10 months later. Somebody reached out to me and they were like, hey man, I really liked your song in Parts Unknown. It's so cool. It reminds me of all the groups that I like, Depeche Mode, The Cure, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, really? I didn't know what he was talking about. So I did some research and I asked them, like, well, first of all, how did you even find me? I didn't release that song. The song was not released.
How bizarre.
There's no way. So, and he was like, well, I want to get a copy of it. Is it on like iTunes, Amazon, whatever? I'm like, no, I did not release that song. And it's crazy that you found me. And he said, oh, well, there was a whole like group of people talking about it on Reddit, and someone figured it out, did some research and found out that it was you, and then sent me to your link. And I was like, wow. So I went over to Reddit, and sure enough, there's a whole thing on a Parts Unknown Reddit subreddit about that song in that episode. And everyone's like, what is it? Who is it? And I was like, oh crap. I missed the first wave. Okay, when that episode came out.
Yeah, sure.
I could have sold a crap load of downloads. It's still, now it's out. I released it, and it does well. I think I get like 300 streams per month now off it. It used to be a lot more.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's either 300 per day or per month. I don't know, nothing crazy, but still there's people interested in the song. So that would be kind of like a popular song, in my library. Like you mentioned, popular song. So now you have that side of things too. So you could actually blow up if you land in like a feature film. You could be totally indie and own the masters to the songs and own all the publishing, and land in a show or a featured film, and that song could blow up.
Yeah, and there you go. That's your holiday. So
that's
home.
kind of like another aspect of.
Yeah, interesting. I guess that's the thing about having all of that stuff out there. I just want to talk a bit about the creative process. So you're saying using a lot of hardware, synths, and a lot of stuff. I mean, do you find, because a lot of people who work for picture or production are working in the box because of recalls, because of all of that sort of thing. How do you handle that sort of thing? How do you tackle it, or don't you care what you use so much?
Well, so I'm not scoring for film right now, so that isn't as important. What they will ask me for a lot of times is they'll ask for stems. So as long as I have stems, we're good.
Right.
And of course I have that. I don't have to really go in and change melodies or chords or, swap out a sound.
Right.
I haven't been in that situation yet. I'm sure someday that will come. I hope so, because it'd be fun. But for example, last year I scored a game for Oculus called Damaged Core. So I wrote, about 30 songs. They're all a minute long, like industrial cinematic type tracks. And it's for that VR game Damaged Core. It's by High Voltage Software. It's an Oculus game. And so when you send those in, you send them a looping version of the song. You send them the song with a nice ending, and then you send them all the stems.
Yeah, I mean, game stuff is
yeah.
complex, isn't it? They have to do a lot of, because there's all sorts of conditional mixes and balances and, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I can imagine that.
Right, yeah, and stuff
dense.
that interacts with the environment and the gameplay. But so that's as far as I've gone in terms of actually scoring something to picture. Like, I had footage from the video game, and that was about it. And, like, descriptions of the characters and stuff. So I haven't hit that obstacle yet. So for me, I don't really need to do that. I suppose I would keep it in the box if I had to do that. If I had to score for film or something, it would make a lot of sense. But there's a lot of cool sound design things you can do with the hardware, where you can really get into it with the tactile, with the knobs, and get some really cool things going there. That you just print. Now you've got the audio. Yeah, you're screwed. You can't really.
So this brings me on to another question, which is, obviously with that amount of stuff that you're going at, do you tend to stick with particular instruments, or are you kind of a bit of a gear junkie, and because a new piece of equipment or a new something will spark off a whole load of new musical ideas? How does that work for you?
Definitely inspired by gear, especially something new when it comes in the studio. But I had to learn to curb that, because it can become, like, as you know, kind of an addiction, and it can become a money pit.
Yeah.
So I found that I have the things that I need right now to get the job done.
So here's a little word from our sponsors. Isotope RX6 Fix It in Post, very apt for the post-production market, but also very useful for producing music. You've got all sorts of tools for cleaning up audio, de-noise, de-bleed, de-hum, some great vocal tools, de-essing, and also de-breath and de-click and de-pop and ground hum, amp noise, lots of great things. So if you want to check that out, please go over to isotope.com/RX6. And we have a competition as well this week if you want to win it. As with all of the RX6 Isotope tools, you can download a free functioning demo. So if you go over, like I say, isotope.com/RX6, go for it. And we thank Isotope for their continued sponsorship of the show via their competition prizes. Very much appreciated. So if you want to enter this week's competition, we haven't got a winner this week because this is a non-live version of the show. Episode 500, we'll announce the winners of both. So we're looking for the hashtag Instant Audio Repair. That's one word. The hashtag Instant Audio Repair and the hashtag RX6 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. So using that on Twitter, so you tweet Instant Audio Repair and the hashtag RX6 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. We'll pick a winner in the next episode. So cool. It seems like a really good time to maybe have a look at what's in your studio, and you can tell us a little bit about how you use it. So I guess we'll cut here while you pick up your phone and show us around the place, right?
Okay, cool.
So starting here, I know this is your rear-facing camera, so it won't be quite. I can see a couple of is that the Dave Smith corner?
Yes.
So what do you got there?
Yeah, I recently got hooked on Dave Smith stuff. It started with The Tempest, which is over here. And it's, I love designing percussive sounds with that. Really cool, really fun. I also like tapping stuff on the pads. I like playing, because I play drums, so... and so there's
it's got a lot of synthesis stuff in it. I noticed you've done a couple of videos of just kind of, hey, look, these cool little riffs and stuff and sketches you've done just on that.
Oh, yeah. No, and the synth is there. It's got a sound, It's so unique. So on that one, actually, I composed the whole song in The Tempest, and I sent it to APM. So it's a matter of months now that'll get placed in TV. And then I can say, here's a song that was composed entirely in The Tempest.
Nice.
Nice. Here it is. Yeah, and then I can say, here's the show that it's in, or a video game or whatever. So, so then moving along, we've got the P12, which I just got. I freaking love this thing, man. it's so alive. It's so crazy. It's organic, but it's digital and partly analog, I suppose. There's an analog filter in there or something. But it's just so cool. And the distortion, it's amazing. For sound design, like, you could get some killer saturation out of it and harmonics.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like a guitar.
And also those extra notes in a polysynth really make a difference, don't they? More than 8.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And also being able to route like the parameters real quick with that like quick routing feature they've got on there, that quick assign. So I'm running that through a Big Sky right now. This is my reverb. I love it, man.
Dream combo.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the TI. That's kind of my the TI2. That's sort of like my Swiss Army knife synth.
Okay.
If there's a sound that I really need, it's just so easy to program and tweak that synth to get like really basic sounds. Cool. I think we're getting. So then, there's a lot of synths. I've got an iPad station over here. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
There's an iTrack dock on top, and then a controller on the bottom. So that's my iPad station. And then I've got a Voyager Electric Blue for analog monosynth goodness. Nord lead. I've just always been a fan of the Nord lead sound. And then a Korg Micro X just for like generic, basic stuff. And then over here we've got some congas. I've got a lot of hand drums in the back. I've got an acoustic guitar, just an old Harmony guitar.
Yeah.
And then a Les Paul classic right here for, it's a little dark, so I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, no, I think we can make it out.
Cool. Just a really, just a studio guitar, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Saber, Music Man bass, a studio bass, kind of an all-in-one tone kind of.
And what are you using to mix with? Have you got a desk? I can't see a desk, so I just think all right.
So everything's going into the Personas.
Right.
You see, the Studio Live.
Yeah. In many ways, it's quite a simple setup. I mean, it's not like large. Are you but have you got a lot of stuff in the box that you're using as well? I mean, do you must, you can't just use hardware for everything. I guess orchestral sounds or whatever it may be.
Right.
You have what are you running? What are you packing for your main computer?
All right, so I usually just get a cheap Windows computer. It lasts about 2 years, and then I get another one. Nothing crazy.
Oh, right. What do you run on it for your main, DAW?
For my DAW?
Yeah.
I'm using Cubase.
Ah, okay.
I'm on 8.5 right now. I didn't buy the upgrade yet. So I plan to. What are they up to? 9 something?
Yeah,
now?
9. That's right. Yeah. No, I think maybe 9.5.
But of course, I own a lot of different DAWs. I have Pro Tools if I need it. I have Ableton Live. I have FL Studio. I have Mixcraft. Well, I produced a bunch of content for Mixcraft, so obviously I have Mixcraft.
Right.
And Studio One. So it's all there. It's just, I go to Cubase. I've just been using Cubase for a long time, so I like the MIDI editing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's really important for composition stuff, isn't it? Because, I mean, Pro Tools or whatever is used a lot in the sync world, but it's not quite as fluent, or it wasn't for a very long time as fluent in the compositional side for MIDI and that side of things, right?
Yeah.
So
it's pretty basic. Nothing flashy.
It's just all about what's in your head. That's the main thing. So what are you using?
Exactly.
So you're using the Personas as the kind of your main sound audio interface, just hooking it up via Firewire, I guess, or how are you doing that?
Right. So I had, I did have a really cool UAD, the Apollo, Universal Audio.
Yeah, sound great, those.
I had that going for a while. And then I picked up another cheap computer, and for some reason it just wasn't vibing. I think there's some kind of weird hardware issue with the hardware in the computer. So I went back to my Studio Live.
Right.
And yeah, that's the interface. It's Firewire.
Yeah,
it does the job.
So just keeping it simple. And are those Genelex monitors behind you?
These are JBL.
Oh, okay.
LSR. What is it? 4328p, I think.
Right, and
powered.
Are they your main? That's what you mix mainly on, right?
Yeah, I love them. And actually, you'll find a lot of these in the post studios in Hollywood. A lot of the post editors mix on these particular monitors. I didn't know that going in. I bought them in like 2007, 2008, just because I really liked how they sounded. And then I started going to post studios later on, and I'm like noticing these are like in every post studio.
So that's handy, because I mean that means that, you know, the guys are hearing kind of what you meant, I suppose, because they're listening to it.
Yeah,
on the same
exactly.
system.
So, yeah.
Excellent. So, what does the future bring, Jason? I mean, you know, are you kind of? I don't know whether you've got your own your studio in your house, or whether you're in a separate facility, or what your kind of plans are. Are you kind of have you got a kind of dream for world domination, or are you looking to maybe do some more creative stuff that under your own name as an artist? I mean, where does it go from here?
Just happy getting work. So, hoping to get a few more video games. That was a lot of fun, and it pays well. I'm also, like I said, I just turned in 3 songs to Nightingale in Canada. They're a big production sync agency. I've got a bunch of new stuff coming out on APM. I sent a bunch of rock tunes to Jerry for a couple new shows on A&E. So, you know, I'm just going to keep doing that. And also I'm producing content for Retronyms. It's an iPad app called Hook.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of stuff in their store, the audio content, copy store, that app that they've designed for, selling content. So I've got a contract going with them. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm kind of juggling. Ultimately, I think for world domination, you know, things are pretty good. We're doing well, but there's always room for growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that world domination would be easy if I had I landed a song in maybe like a feature film.
Right.
So we're kind of hoping that that's going to happen with this Nightingale thing, with these kind of Owl City-ish type songs. I can definitely hear them in like a Pixar film.
Yeah, we'll our fingers are crossed for you for that, because
Thanks,
that's obviously the kind of thing. I mean, this is interesting though, isn't it? Because I mean, as a musician, you know, there are so many different ways that one can go. You know, you can have that, and then that might lead to kind of more artist-based stuff. I mean, and this, I mean, syncing is one, and syncs and placements are definitely a major part. I mean, it's one of the few areas where there's still money in the industry, to be honest, isn't it? I mean, as far as I could tell.
So one thing I want to do is I kind of want to help people that are just getting started. You know, it'd be nice to do some kind of public speaking or whatever. I tell people I'll do free consultations. Just PM me and, you know, ask me whatever you want, because I feel like a lot of musicians are out there and they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They could use a little guidance. The sync world is great, man. It's so cool. It's so cool if you can vibe with that line of work, which not everyone can. It's a really cool thing. It's great to get paid doing, you know, being creative, doing what you love. So, and it's not for everyone, but I know a lot of people who would love to get into it. So, and there's a lot of people out there that could use that information.
A little bit of help.
So
I guess people could, you know, just message you on Facebook or something, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, that's one thing that I'd like to start doing more, is kind of giving back to the community, helping people, inspiring people to get a BMI or ASCAP account. You know, that's the first thing you should do. That once you plant that seed, or if you're in the UK, obviously it's not BMI, it's PRS. But once you start there, at least you've gotten that far, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how do you expect anything to happen if you don't start with the most fundamental,
which is the ability to track all of your work, and so therefore, it gets assigned, and one day that might yield some kind. That's good advice, actually, because I guess then people could post stuff to. There are various sites where people can post, and there must be people who pick up. But I mean, obviously, you can't beat the face-to-face networking side of thing. I mean, you in LA is obviously the ideal place for that to happen, so it happens a little more easily, I guess, right?
It does in LA, yeah, and also Vegas. We have Vegas nearby. I go to NAB every year. You don't know what that's done for me. It's like probably the best convention. I love it. I've met so many people. You meet editors, supervisors, library agents, the whole nine.
Do you think there's a lot of room for growth in the sync industry? Is there a hunger? I mean, if you could be more creative and produce more stuff, would there be a demand for it? So do you think there's room for this whole thing to expand?
Yes, for sure. We live right now. This is like a renaissance for television. With streaming and now Amazon, Netflix, they're all starting their own TV shows. There's so much content and more content coming out. So yeah, there's definitely a need for more music content. It's like I said, it's like a renaissance. I mean, there's so many great, cool new shows, and they're not all on major networks. They're not on cable,
Sure.
Look at this Master of None that's been nominated. That's a Netflix series, Netflix original. So yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jason, thank you very much for talking to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, maybe see you at NAMM in January in 2018, right?
Yeah, sure. Looking forward to it.
I'll definitely buy you a margarita, right?
Oh, man. All right. As long as you'll let me buy one back, we got to do
absolutely. Well, I think by the sound of it, you'll be in a good position for that. So anyway, best of luck with the rest of the year, and hopefully see you very soon. Take care.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Nick.